I'm hoping this works properly because it was giving a little warning about storage, but yeah. Okay, everybody can see my screen, should be able to.
Sometimes
Yes, I can see it.
It makes me want a little bit more acidity. Your chips, they're so crispy. So you did a good job in getting those.
Oh, I think getting background noise from somewhere. Okay, all right, so overview for today. So I've been taking attendance, so I don't forget, and I'll probably have to do it later on. We'll do introductions, course expectations, then do a overview of some business intelligence stuff, and then we'll get into Python basics, which is why we're here. So, yep, my name is Ida Angama. I'm originally from Finland, born and raised, lived there for about 16 years, and then moved to the US. Been in the US for almost 13 years now. I am a software engineer for the most part. I've worked a couple other titles in the past as well. I have a master's in computer science that I just finished pretty much last week. That was my second master's. My first master's was in information systems from University of Florida. And the other one is from Georgia Tech. And then I also have a bachelor's in just business administration. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do at the time when I got to college. So business seemed like something I could apply in various places, and I think it worked out pretty well. I most recently worked out at Amazon Web Services. Then I've also worked at Delta Airlines, Verizon, and right now I was finishing my master's, and then I do some projects for Nate, and then now I'm teaching you guys, and then I'm hoping to land a new role somewhere in the next few months. So that is TBD. Some other things, fun facts about me. I have a private pilot's license. That was actually what I went into college for very first. I was going to be a pilot, airline pilot. Realized I did not want to be an airline pilot, but ended up getting my license to be able to fly planes. And then that's pretty much when I switched my majors. I really enjoy DIYing, like house improvement, any type of crafts. I've always been very handy in that way. Like I like sewing and like artsy stuff. I have 2 fur babies. I have 2 little dogs. They're one is like 16 pounds, the other one's 26 pounds. So cute little fur babies. I love traveling. I've been to over 35 countries and counting. I find it very fun, and yeah, it's great to see the world everywhere. And mostly I find my shopping addiction by working in tech because I love Amazon. They bring me a lot of packages during the week. And it's maybe a little bit of a problem, but it's fun. It's completely fun. If you guys have any questions about me, feel free to ask. I'm an open book. Love to tell anything and everything. But I would like to hear more about you guys. If you can introduce your name, and then where do you work or where do you want to work? I think some people are probably doing a little bit of a career transition, I'm assuming, possibly. So I'd love to hear about that. What do you do right now? What do you want to do? And why are you taking this class? And then what would you like to learn? And then feel free to share a fun fact or anything about you. We can go in order that I see on my screen. So Melinda, you can go first.
Okay, I'm Melinda Kozel. So my background is in design and website development. ODSA in Cannes is one of my design clients, and that's how I kind of got involved. But I'm actually I am doing a career transition. I got laid off last year from a UI UX job. I've been doing some freelancing over the past year, but I'm kind of just looking to pivot to something that's a little bit more sustainable and consistent and something a little more task-based. And so I'm excited about that. I don't know where in particular I want to work. I just kind of want to feel like I'm doing like solid work every day and learning things and getting better and doing projects. And so that's the environment I'm kind of looking for. I don't know what to expect of the class because I don't really know how Python works, but I feel like it's a part of a lot of different areas. So I'm excited to learn something that could take me in lots of different places. And I love to code, so I'm just excited to learn something new.
Very cool. We will be doing that. And then Z, I'm assuming Zanel.
Yeah, that's Zanel. I'm Zanel. So right now I work at. Hold on 1 second. I'll eat some Chex Mix. All right, my bad. So right now I work at International Nutrition, and I'm a forklift driver there. I do forklift for the production side, and set up our warehouse really nice. I just know that I want to work remotely, and I'm just trying to check out if this is something that I really like to do, and just diving more into it, more and more into it as much as I can. So
Potatoes.
Very nice. Yeah, this is data science, analytics, definitely a very remote friendly job. All of my jobs have been remote actually, except like I did internships in person, but then once I graduated, every single job has been remote. And I think I could do like a couple of days in the office, but I definitely enjoy being at home with my dogs in pajama pants. Okay, Rosendo, hopefully saying that correctly. Wait, if your mic is not working, you can drop a note in the chat. I saw your note, your comment earlier. And then Carmen, it shows devices not connected, so I'm not sure. Hopefully you're able to hear us at least, but I'm not able to add you to the stage to talk. So you can also leave a little chat if you want to. Then Ronnie.
Yeah, I'm Ronnie Huerta. I'm an assistant principal at Burke High School, and they have a data analytics pathway. And I've attended a couple of these classes before, so I'm kind of just sitting in again, just trying to see how we can connect our high school pathway to the, workforce development, and then obviously pick up some skills myself. So maybe when I retire, I can help teach the kids too. So we'll see. But I'm in here to observe and just learn from a different instructor because I have sat through the class and have a whole binder of Python.
Oh, very cool.
Not saying I've practiced it and I'm up to speed, but how we can help see what we're teaching at the high school level and move forward that way.
Are you guys teaching like programming yet?
Yes, and I'm new enough. This is my first year at Burke. I was at South High for 31 years, and so I knew what was going on and who was teaching it at South, and I'm trying to get that awareness at Burke, but had the opportunity to jump in and do the cohort again, and so wanted to. But I'm doing athletic directing at Burke, so I'm not as connected with the curriculum. So I'm trying to, get myself connected to those specific teachers. And as you know, when you've got skills like this, working in education for the teacher pay is not necessarily where the program. It's usually a math teacher that has some logic and knowledge and problem solving that, and I was the PE teacher who taught programming many years ago. And so I've been a programming instructor in my past life, but now I was the data administrator at South. So I've done lots with data analytics
Nice.
as well.
Nice. I really wish they taught programming when I was in high school. Like, I think it's so great that kids these days are learning it, because I think it is a very, very valuable skill. And even if it's not something that you want to do for work, I think it is still valuable. I personally use Python to like automate a lot of things, and I'll show you guys an example later on. But like anything that you're doing on computer, and I'm like, how can I make this? How can I improve this? How can I make this more efficient? And that's where the coding skills, or at least the knowledge, breaks out.
Yep.
Very nice. Maz?
Hi, I'm Maz.
Matt.
I work currently at it's called TKO5 Health and Wellness. It's a health and wellness studio I started with a couple of people and invested in. I actually have my master's in IT innovation, so it's less hardware, software, but more kind of human machine collaboration. Like, where's the sweet spot between tech and then human processes? And for reasons why I want to learn Python is really, you kind of just said it, Ida, is I really want to learn how to automate a lot of these things. I'm familiar with coding and programming, mainly Java, but I crawled out of Java, which is it's just pretty dry for me, and I have a short attention span. And Python, going in and out of, seems to be a little bit more intuitive and easier. As far as expectations, I kind of see this as like a refresher, but also foundational to kind of relearn Python. Yeah. And this is Richard. He'll scream in the background if I don't hold him like this. So
Nice. Yeah, I do think Python it's much simpler, easier, more intuitive than Java. I do think Java was one of the first languages that I learned, and I think it can teach a really nice for object-oriented programming. That is a very important concept. And while Python can do that, I feel like it's less in the middle of it. So I think Java is like a great starting point, but I do think Python is much easier to learn because you don't have all the curly brackets and all these extra words everywhere, and it's not stressing you out. So
one little curly boy, and my whole night is ruined.
I remember the very first time I saw JavaScript, I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know if I'm made for this, but it gets easier. But Python is definitely like, it makes a lot of sense, at least for me, and hopefully it'll make sense for all of you. Okay. And then Rosendo, were you able to get your mic working? If not, you guys can also drop me a little note on the Slack. I'll be active on there throughout the class. Yeah, so this notebook that you see right here is basically the slides. I'll make sure that you guys have access to these. I don't know if you guys have access to this deep note or how others have done it, but I will make sure that you guys have a copy of this at the end of the class, and I will try to maybe share one before each class in the future, if that's helpful. And yeah, so we'll always start with the deep note in our classes, and then we're gonna move over to Anaconda Cloud. A lot of times they have some nice sample notebooks that help me walk through Python basics and fun stuff you can do with Python. And then we may do a local Anaconda environment. That's what I'm the most familiar with. This is the first time I'm actually using the cloud, which it's pretty much the same thing as the local environment. I think the local environment is a little prettier in my opinion, but they work the same. And yeah, nobody's expecting you to become a master software engineering coding wizard. We're just We're just here to learn a couple things. And as I will promise that everyone like still uses Stack Overflow, Google, ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT so much, just like it just makes your life so much easier because you can kind of like, it'll help you debug things and like debug very specific scenarios versus like Google, you'll have to like ask it in a certain way that you can find your answer versus ChatGPT can kind of help you actually answer the specific question that you have. Yeah, please ask questions. I don't think this software has any type of hand. I know some, I think like Zoom, like you can raise your hand or whatnot, but just stop me or put a chat if you have any questions. I will try to keep my eye out. And if I'm not noticing, just yell. That's fine. And I think Paloma joined. If you want to introduce yourself real quickly. We were doing introductions right before you joined. Potentially. If not, you can just leave a chat. And then, okay. We shall get into it. All right, so my understanding is that everyone's taking the SQL class. Is that correct? So everyone should know what SQL is. Am I right?
Yes, we just finished that.
Okay, perfect. So there's going to be a little bit of review of SQL in today, but I'm expecting all of you to be masters in it. I'm just kidding. Not really. But yeah, I'm not going to read all that because you guys know what SQL is. But yeah, that's kind of what we're going to go over is like some data manipulation and visualization and data science concepts, business intelligence concepts. That's kind of the focus for today. I think everyone's seen some kind of, and I think you guys took Tableau before SQL, right? So you guys are also familiar with different kinds of visualizations and dashboards, very critical in data science and in business, being able to represent data efficiently in a way that people understand, especially non-technical people, because it doesn't always translate well. But it can help you identify patterns, trends, outliers in the data, and just make it easier to interpret and analyze, which is what we want. And with SQL and Tableau data visualization, that's like a great starting point to, if you were to look at a job to be an analyst at a company, that's pretty much all you need to start that. That's my very first position was actually, I was a senior business intelligence analyst. That was pretty much where the focus was, like knowing SQL and then being able to make some dashboards like that already is a lot to be able to get in the field and get that remote job that everybody wants. And then we'll get into some other tools that you guys might or may not be familiar with. So command line is also referred to as CLI or terminal, PowerShell. This one, when you're watching a movie and then you see like the hacker is doing all these things and things populate, that's kind of what they're portraying there. It can help you manipulate your information on your computer without having to like click around and whatever. So I'll show you guys a little example as well. But once it's really painful when you don't know it. It doesn't make any sense because it's very unintuitive when you don't know it. But once you do know it, it can be very, very helpful. So I would definitely suggest to learn a couple of things there because it can help you be more efficient when it comes to coding and managing your information on your computer. But yeah, examples, we have the Google Cloud Shell. For Windows, we have Command, CMD, PowerShell, Mac Terminal, Linux Bash, and then a really nice alternative that I use personally is called Warp. This one's, I believe, only available for Linux and Mac, but it's it's terminal, but it's like fancy terminal. It helps you. It has like a lot of shortcuts. It just helps you. It makes it a lot more intuitive, which I do think that using a tool like that is probably gonna help you learn terminal commands much easier. Then you can also have terminals. Well, you have terminals within IDEs, so VS Code, Spider, PyCharm, RStudio, and I'll show you guys an example here. So let's see. I think I have to change my screen. Let's do this. So here's basically what the terminal looks like on, so I'm on Mac, so this is what it looks like. It might look a little bit different on Windows. And what I really don't like that the commands are actually different on Windows. I'm not really a Windows user, so whenever I have to use Windows, it's a little painful because I'm very much integrated into the Apple environment. But I have noticed that PowerShell on Windows I think that one uses the same language that is for terminal and for Mac and Linux. But this is what it looks like. This is the built-in terminal on Mac, and basically what you can do with it. So right now I'm in a folder, and when I type ls, it's going to show me everything that's in this folder. So any other directories, any files that there are, and we can go cd desktop. So now we're in my desktop, and I'll show you what else is in here. And this one you can do things like delete files, move files, create files, just manipulate a lot of things. And then example of warp that I was talking about earlier. So this is what it looks like. It looks very similar. However, it'll show you, like, it kind of gives you suggestions, and it has a more of like a UI to it versus just being plain text that most of the time command line and terminals are. So I really enjoy it and would highly recommend checking it out. And I think it has a better history. It kind of starts to learn what you do and where you usually go. So very highly recommend that one. So let's see. So yeah, so ls basically means list. It'll list everything that's in the folder. cd, that's how you navigate between different folders. And you could do things like ping google.com. So like it'll like a little networking things. When I was at AWS, I worked in networking, and I'm kind of traumatized by it because I really don't like networking, and it's really complicated in my opinion. I really enjoy being more on the application and data science side, but that's what you use it a lot. We would use terminal to do all these networking things. I would not recommend it, but if you're into it, that's great. And then, has everyone heard of version control here? GitHub, one of the most important things that you can have, in my opinion, when it comes to development and pretty much doing anything. Version control, so I think this is probably given, but it does what it does. It controls the versions. So today I created an application, and then I committed my changes, and then tomorrow I do something, and then I realize I broke something, so I can kind of revert back to the last version that I had. And yeah, lifesaver. And a lot of times when you're debugging things, you kind of try a lot of different things. And if you're not sure what you're doing, I think version control can really help you out, because you're like, okay, I already tried that, or this is what happened when I tried this, and XYZ. Very, very important to learn version control. In academia especially, that has saved me from academic violation. I was accused of plagiarism before, and I was like, okay, like, first of all, no, I spent like 3 days on this project. I did it all by myself. I don't think I even Googled anything. Like, I was shocked when they showed me how similar my code was to some other people's, but since I have my version control, I was able to show my history and say like, hey, like this is all the different things that I went through, and like you can kind of see my logic where I'm working through this. And so yeah, highly recommend learning version control. So a lot of times, so we can look at GitHub, if maybe familiar or not, but a lot of people post, you know, you have open source projects, you're looking for something, like you're looking for a script to do something, you might just find it here and you might not have to build it yourself. And different APIs, I put my projects in here. You can do private repos or public repos if you want to share it. But yeah, so usually when you're working with someone else's project, you would clone it, you would click create a new branch, and you would make your changes. And then you would commit those changes, comments, and then push it. And then creating a pull request. Also, some people call it code reviews, which I think make a lot more sense to me than like pull requests. Like just doesn't make sense to me, honestly. But basically, you're asking for somebody to review your code so it can be published. So they're going to make sure that you're not going to break something with those changes that you're trying to publish. So then someone else will review it and then approve it, and then you will merge in those changes. And you see this a lot. Like it's great using just by yourself. Like I use it all the time with my own projects, but it is especially important when you're working in a team, because you want to have a repository that like everyone's working, versus like, hey, like I made these changes in this file and then you're gonna email that file to them. It's just a mess. It allows you to collaborate and work together. And whenever you're making changes, if somebody else deleted something that you added, or like you're working on something together, it kind of allows you to review it and like see how it should be merged versus just overriding someone else's changes. So yeah, common Git providers. We have GitHub that I just showed you guys. There's GitLab. Not super familiar GitLab, honestly, or Bitbucket, but various companies use different kinds of things. But GitHub is the most famous. And then that's just like a front, like UI to Git. Git itself is like the version control way to do it, and GitHub just hosts the repositories. Fun fact, Git was actually invented by a guy from Finland, and I don't remember his name right now. Something Torvis or something. I should really know that. A terrible software engineer for not knowing that, but I think it's cool that he's from Finland. They also have, instead of using, because you know, you create the commits and add files in terminal. That's how you see a lot of people do it. But they've also made something that's a little more intuitive and less just words and codes. So they do have a GitHub desktop, which shows you it'll show you like, oh, this is where you made this change, and then you can change your repository and change the branch, sync them, and this is where you would create the commit. So when you've made changes, you'll put a little message right here, your commit message, and then you're going to commit to it, and then you'll be able to publish it to the repository. They also have it in Visual Studio Code. We have version control, source control over here. So whenever you create something change, so we just do hello world over here, it's going to show right here like, hey, this is the change that you made. Do you want to, here we would stage this change, then we would write a commit message, and then we would commit and push it. But that's how you can see, and then you can go back on the versions and kind of see like what has changed and where did you make a mistake, and debug it. Anybody have any questions? No questions? All right, we'll get into the super fun stuff. Lots of different definitions. So talk a little bit about data management. So Wikipedia defines data management as all disciplines related to handling data as valuable resource. Data is like gold to companies. You need to be able to efficiently manage your data to do anything. But to be able to run a business, you need to know how to manage your data, whether it's your customer data, your logistics, your research, market research, whatever. Like, you need to manage data. And that's one thing that has become like really huge nowadays is like cybersecurity is becoming really high in demand, because all these companies, they have a ton of data. They have so much data that they need to protect, and they don't know how. So they need to find cybersecurity professionals who can help them secure the data and protect it so they don't get into wrong hands, because data is super, super valuable to all companies, which is why we hear a lot about companies selling our data. And, you know, we have, you say that you're looking to buy a new plant, and next thing, Facebook shows you a ad about it. So yeah, they're collecting our data for sure. So yeah, process of collecting, storing, organizing, maintaining, protecting, and analyzing data. We want to make sure that the data is accurate, complete, consistent, and it can be accessed and used effectively by stakeholders within an organization. So when we're talking about like accessing data and like having it accurate, because for you to be able to showcase your data, so do your visualizations and analyze it, it needs to be accurate and complete. And we need to be able to effectively access it. There's too many companies who are using like Excel spreadsheets as their database, and I swear nothing hurts me more. That is so ineffective. Like, it's not, like, make it even like Google Sheets, because at least that's in the cloud and like multiple people can access it. But when we're talking about like a Google, an Excel spreadsheet, oh, never do that. Please don't do that. Like, again, just even Google Sheets is going to be better, but highly advised to do a proper database whenever you're dealing with a lot of data that needs to be accessed by multiple people in a company. Yeah, so key activities like we talked about: collection, storage, organization, quality management, governance, and analytics. All very important parts about data management. And then, yeah, databases. There's different kinds of databases. We have lakehouse, warehouses, data storage on the cloud, various ways to store your data, anything but the Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Okay, and then we obviously want to manipulate our data in order to do what we want to do with it, whether we want to visualize it, whether we want to analyze it, because data is, a lot of times, it's never like you want it. There's been a lot of projects where a client just hands over a database, a spreadsheet, whatever, and you can barely use it, and they don't even know what's on there. So being able to manipulate it, clean it up, prepare it, also very, very important when it comes to data science and analytics and being able to visualize it. You want to learn that, but there's a lot of tools to do that. But yeah, we're gonna go through that with Python. There's some other nice applications that can also help you with that. But today we're going to learn how you can do it for free without any, well, actually not today, but later in the course. So yeah, data manipulation for adding or inserting, deleting, modifying data, transforming it, reorganize it to make it more useful and meaningful analysis. Because you can't, when you put poor data into your dashboard, whatever, you're gonna get not good out, not good in, not good out. That's how it works. It'll be as good as your visualizations and analysis will be as good as the data is. So it is very important to be able to prepare it properly. So cleaning it, transforming it, enriching it, filtering, and then normalizations as well, which potentially learned about in SQL. about normalizing data. And that's what you see a lot in like databases where you would do that. So for cleaning, we want to like fill in any missing values or like incorrect data types, inconsistent data, because we cannot. A lot of times you can't handle null data, but you can handle empty data. So we want to make sure that we fill in like null numerical values with zeros to be able to portray properly on a dashboard. And that's and then filtering it if we're only focusing on something specific. You can oftentimes do this on dashboards yourself, but if your projects that you're working on only focuses on, I don't know, data from Europe, there's no reason to pull the whole world's data into your dashboard if you know it's only going to be focusing on Europe. So being able to filter it early on is going to make things a lot more efficient. So yeah, you can do that, a lot of that with SQL, which you guys hopefully did some of that. And then there's some other methods. Pandas is very, very popular. That's what we're going to be playing with later on as well. I haven't even like heard of some of these other ones, and I will probably be checking them out because I didn't know Pandas was that slow, because I think it works pretty well. So very interesting. And then if you're working on like projects, you want to make visualizations, dashboards, you want to analyze, you want to practice your data cleaning skills with Python. Here's a couple links where you can get like sample data sets. Kaggle is like one of the most popular one, I think. They have like millions of data sets. You can find like anything on there. And it's a lot of times, I think it's like real data. So you're looking at a e-commerce data for Europe, for Finland. I don't know. You can find it there, and you can make a lot of cool projects with that. And then this was like just a little blog post kind of thing that I found really interesting. They had some nice data sets there, and I'll make sure to share all of these with you. And then Google data search. If you're looking for something specific, there's a great way to search for data sets. However, I did notice that a lot of them require you to pay for them, so that's kind of lame. But yeah, Kaggle, definitely like usually the first place to go to when you're starting a new data science project that you don't know what you want to analyze yet. Yeah, SQL, you guys have gone over this. Here's another link that I wanted to share with you guys. It's called SQL Bolt. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of this, but this is like such a great website to like refresh your knowledge, because I don't use SQL super often in my work, but then there's times that like I'm like, oh, like I need to quickly kind of refresh like how to do all these queries and how to do joins. And this website is so nice for it, because they do like a little interactive tutorial. And basically right here, it's like, oh, exercise 1, find the title of each film. So you'll be like, okay, title, and then it's nice, director, and then title and director. And it's like immediately tells you if you got it right or wrong. And it gets a lot more complicated than just this, but it really like gives you a super speedy refresher if you happen to forget how to use SQL. So highly recommend this website. Yeah, I think I'll probably skip this because you guys just came for SQL, so you guys know how to do this, but being able to look at specifics and filter and whatnot. We'll talk about spreadsheets real quickly. I think everyone's here has seen an Excel spreadsheet at some point, or Google Sheet. And you're the bane of my existence. Listen, like Excel, there's a lot of things that you'll learn to do with Python when it comes to data manipulation, but sometimes it's just easier to like put it in Excel. Like if it's not a huge data set, like trying to delete a column or like filter out something. So I'll just pop it in Excel and do it there. But when you are dealing with a little bit bigger data sets, that Excel just gets super slow and can't handle anymore, and you're trying to do something a little more advanced, you'll want to use something like SQL or Python. So yeah, we'll talk about modern languages. So Python is very versatile, and I'll go into it a little bit more why you should learn Python, because it is overall really great language. But for the most part, it's super popular because it's simple, very readable, and it's easy to use. It's an interpreted language, which means that the code is executed line by line without needing to be compiled first, which is something that Java does, that you need to compile it first. And you either get a runtime error or you get a compiler error. Versus Python, it just keeps going until it's going to hit something and tell you that, yeah, it's not working. But yeah, very versatile language and can be used for a variety of tasks. I've used it for application development, scripting, automating tasks, visualizations. Overall, just very good language to pick up, especially if it's your first language. It's a good one to start with. Then there's R, which is another programming language. A lot of times used in statistics and graphics. You can do a lot of things with R that you can do with Python when we're looking at it from a data science standpoint. I think it's a little heavier as far as, we were talking about earlier about like the curly brackets. It can look a little more scary, I think, versus like Python. It's very simple. It's easy on the eyes. But R it's still very widely used, especially when it comes to statistics. But I do feel like there's a lot of overlap, and I feel like a lot of you can do almost anything with Python that you could with R. I might be wrong on that because I haven't studied R a whole lot, but that's just my understanding for the most part. Then there's Scala. That's becoming a little more popular. I have not programmed in Scala myself, but when I was at AWS, I know some people were using that. We won't be learning it here today. And then Julia, actually never heard of this. Pretty new, I think, compared to these older languages. And then we have Rust, Java, C. So I think a lot of people, when they first get into programming, they hear about Java. And like I said earlier, it is a really great first language to learn. I think it really emphasizes the object-oriented programming concepts, really helps you understand classes, variables, but it is definitely a little not as simple and nice looking as Python. Mostly used for web development, application development. That's mobile development. I've done some Android mobile apps with Java before. It was very widely used when I did my, actually both of my degrees. Java it's very widely used if you're on the development side of things. And then C, low-level programming language. It's very, very speed. It is not easy to write, though. I think the first time I had to write C, it's just not, no, I wouldn't recommend it. But there's still a lot of companies that use C because, again, it is very efficient. Versus Python is actually, it is efficient as far as it can be speedy, but I think it uses a ton of resources. I just saw an infographic the other day, and basically we have Java and Python are at the bottom versus C is all the way at the top. So a lot of companies do still like C because of its performance. But I think it's, Java and Python much easier to learn, in my opinion. We'll go over this section and then we can take a break at the top of the hour and continue afterwards. So yeah, enterprise data science platforms and solutions. What are the use cases? So scalability, like I was talking about, like data management, manipulation. It is very important to be able to manage large scales of data for analytics and whatever you're using it for. When we're dealing with a lot of data and we have big companies, you want to build solutions that are scalable. For example, Amazon is really huge on this. Like they want to be able to know that whatever you're building, you can scale it. They're a global company when it comes to their networking solutions, their technical solutions. They are, popping new infrastructure in different countries, and being able to scale is very high and important for a lot of companies, for a lot of big companies. Collaboration, very important, especially in today's age. We have remote work. My team at AWS, I think we had 4 people who were like fully remote. Then we have a couple people in Seattle, some in Minneapolis. Then we had some in Australia, Dublin. So like being able to collaborate on your projects, like we're talking about version control, very, very important for that. But having tools that lets you collaborate effectively, very important, because then you get more done quicker. Ease of use is very, and that's kind of like with Python. I think it's very, because it's kind of like almost just like reading English. So like you want things that are easy to use, user friendly. Training people it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and companies don't want that because they want efficiency. So ease of use for whatever you're creating, developing, highly recommend it. Customer support. This is definitely very, very important for big companies because that's where the money is. Like being able to support your customers, your clients, especially for like AWS, we saw a lot of times if we're having network problems, like our customers cannot do anything if our network is down. So we want to make sure that we can support them properly in order for them to bring money in. So being able to support your customers. And then integration. This one, integrating different, whether it's your applications or data, being able to like streamline your workflows. Another one, actually, we'll talk about the popular platforms in a bit. Alteryx is one really great tool that I've previously worked with. I think that was not still available on Mac, which makes me so mad because it is such a great tool. But like being able to integrate various things, pulling things from email, from databases, integrating some Python in it, and then automating emails, automating anything. So being able to integrate different tools and platforms, very much appreciated across people working in data. So yeah, public platforms, Alteryx, data science and analytics platform, provides a range of features for data preparation, analysis, and automation. If you ever get a chance to use Alteryx, please take it because it is such a great tool. It's basically like no code workflows. So you kind of drag and drop what you want to do. It can help you like clean up data, automate emails, create reports. I think there's a lot of different things popping up these days that do very similar things. I think Zapier does very similar things. But yeah, we like that, like no code workflows. People appreciate that a lot because, again, ease of use. You don't need to be highly trained to use them, which is cheaper for companies. And then Dataiku, Databricks. These are also very popular when it comes in the data science field, whether it's collaborating or doing different kinds of projects. SaaS, a little bit older. I think a lot of companies still use SaaS, but I think there's a lot of different new solutions that work a little bit better. But I think a lot of older companies, they're very hesitant to change their things. At least in my experience, I've seen that, unless you work for a tech company. But like if you don't work for a tech company, they just want to keep things as they are. And I don't think they should. I think they should be exploring new technology because it can make things more efficient and overall better. The Microsoft Azure, another cloud-based platform, similar to, we have Azure and then we have AWS and Google Cloud Platform. They all have very similar services when it comes to like data storage, analytics, processing, visualization, different types of tools for machine learning and predictive analytics. Yeah, and those, I think most companies nowadays are using cloud in some form, and that's usually either they use AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure. Those are the biggest ones. So you'll probably get to work with the cloud-based tools at some point in your life if you decide to continue in data science. All right, we'll take a quick 10-minute break. Does that sound good? And then we'll get into Python. Let's see, I think. Does anyone have any questions? I kind of went through that. Please ask questions if you have any questions, or if you have any comments. Okay, so be back by, for you guys, it's 6:55, so 7:05 p.m. Central Time. Is that right? I think so. Because I'm in Eastern Time, so it's about to be 8 o'clock. So it's about to be 7 o'clock for you guys. Yeah. All right. Is this working? Yeah, there we go. All right. Be back in 10. Yes, no. Okay, okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, let me back up just a bit. So yeah, why should we be learning Python? Like we talked about a little bit before, it's very easy to learn compared to other programming languages, simple syntax, very pleasant on the eyes. You know, you can oftentimes look at Python code and you can pretty much figure out what it's doing versus in a lot of different languages. If you're not familiar with the syntax or the language, you might not understand, and it's gonna take a little, you know, you need to learn that language in order to understand it. With Python, it's mostly like English, so you're not gonna know everything, but you'll definitely get an idea what's going on. Python is very versatile. I mentioned earlier, I've kind of used it for applications, automation, scripting. You can use it for web development, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, scientific computing, and recently it's been really felt in the fields of AI and machine learning, making it a very high in demand skill. You know, everyone's popping up with their AI tools, so very good time to be learning Python. That's for sure. Very well supported. Lots of frameworks and libraries. There's a library to do almost anything. And you know, a lot of communities, lots of support. Whenever you have a question, you can most likely find it online. If you cannot find it online in Stack Overflow, you can probably ask ChatGPT and it can tell you, which makes it much easier to use because you're not trying to invent the wheel like someone else has most likely do it. What you're trying to do, you're just trying to do it in a different way. So very well supported, lots of documentation, very great, very good language to start out with. Compatibility, also in regards to like being well supported, you can use Python across almost like any OS. There's rarely any issues. So it's not like, for example, we look at Swift, which is Apple's programming language. So when you're trying to build applications for iOS or Mac, you're going to be doing Swift, which is, don't know if you can, maybe you can do it in Windows. I'm not sure. We'll only do it again. I'm such an Apple girly. I'm very integrated into the environment. And then lastly, it's free and open source. Like I said, big community, lots of documentation, lots of people willing to answer your questions when you're trying to develop things with Python. I talk about the syntax and easiness to learn. We can compare Python to Java, to C++. This is how you want to output hello world to the terminal as an output. This is how you do it in Python. You just say print hello world, versus Java. We require all this stuff to be able to do it. Oops. And then C++, just a lot of things that C++ is one of those languages that is just not very intuitive, in my opinion. So yeah, takes a lot more effort to learn that. Yeah, so we're going to be talk a little bit about web development, application data science, automation scripting. That's where I use it the most myself, is writing scripts to automate various things. My very recent project is, I call it the iCalendar cleaner. So I can show you guys, this is what I was showing you guys earlier. So basically, I have this script that is subscribed to an iCloud calendar. So my husband has a work schedule that gets outputted to an iCalendar, but it has a lot of stuff in it. Like here you can see, like, these are his off days. It gets marked with like XX and like these stars. And I just hate that it's it's just putting all this stuff in the calendar that doesn't need to be there. So basically what I did is I wrote a Python script that will take this and then output it to a new Google Calendar, but it filters out all the noise. And then that way, so instead of it looking like this, it looks like this, where only the actual working hours are in here. And yeah, it's just a personal thing that I've used Python for. And I think when you incorporate Python into, or any project that you're doing, if it's something that you're kind of passionate about, or it's going to make help your life easier, you're more likely to go through it. Like, you're more likely to going to do it. So when a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like just do some side projects and whatever, and then you go online and you're trying to figure out like what side project to do, but you're not really passionate about that project because it's not gonna help anything, or you're not passionate about that specific topic, you're probably not going to be interested in doing it. So doing projects that you're actually interested in is going to keep you much more engaged. So I can show you how this works as well. Let's see. So here's better located in the Google Calendar. So right now there's nothing here, but if I go and run this, I'll do debugging. So here it's going to put out log messages on what it's doing. It's interacting with the Google Calendar API to pull current events and then output different events, or output new events. So now we should see things are going to pop in here. So yeah, so now these two got added here, and that's because of the script. So yeah, I hope you find that cool, because I find it very cool. Yeah, and then we're going to, let's talk about this one real quickly. So yeah, different visualizations that you can do. So you guys did Tableau, dashboards, different kind of visualizations. So you can do that same thing with Python. Plotly, Matplotlib, say that 10 times fast. And NumPy is very popular when it comes to data science with Python, creating visualizations. So you make cool things like this, and then make dashboards, output them to different things. But we'll get into that later on. I know that looks maybe a little scary right now. There's a lot of things going on, but we'll get into it later. And then we're gonna go over to Anaconda Cloud. And actually, I have it open over here. And let's do actually, so you'll want to sign up for this so you can access these notebooks yourself. So let me walk through that really quickly. Can do, let's see, incognito. So you'll come here, and I can put this in the chat. But signing up, and then you can sign up with GitHub if you have one, Google, Microsoft, or then just email and password. And then I'm already logged in here. So once you're logged in, you should be seeing this. And then, so I'm gonna a couple minutes before I would do that, so you can follow along. If you don't want to follow along, you can do it later. But I'd highly recommend it because we'll be spending a lot of time in Anaconda Cloud. And if you have any issues, please let me know. Any questions? So once you've created your account, there's this tab, Notebooks, and it's going to open the Jupyter Lab in the browser, and you should be seeing something like this. And then for today, we're gonna start with the Python introduction, and I think you can find it from, so clicking Anaconda Learning, Python Programming, and Introduction to Python. So you won't have all of these here unless you've already been here. I have them here because I was playing with them earlier. But yeah, we're gonna start with over here with strings. And another thing I noticed is when you go and open this, it's gonna open a new notebook. Make sure to save it, because if you don't save it and you close it, it's just going to be an empty notebook. And yeah, found that out in a hard way. So make sure to save your notebooks. And this little ball tells you if it's not saved. So I think
Can you go back to how you get into the folder, the learning folder?
Yeah, so launcher. So this one should be when you first open the notebooks, you should be seeing something like this. And then learning, does it look like that? You won't have these in the side. So you won't have folders in the side, but you should have like the launcher in the middle that you see these green circles.
Close some other windows that popped up. Okay.
Yeah. So when you're in the launcher, Anaconda Learning, and then Python Programming, and then Introduction to Python. And this is where you're going to find the notebooks for today.
Okay.
And unfortunately, you have to open all of them individually and individually save them, which is kind of a pain. But once you've saved them, you'll have them here on the side. Everybody at the same step? Anybody having any issues? So yeah. So a little bit about Jupyter Notebooks. This is a really great place to practice with Python. And when you're doing, data manipulation, visualization, a lot of people like to use Jupyter Notebooks because you can, so these are like cells, you can run them individually versus what I showed you guys on Visual Studio Code with my script. It just runs the whole thing unless you're in debugging mode. But this one, you can kind of like, you do one step at a time. And it's really nice that you're able to break your code into these little cells and go one by one. Especially when you're in like development mode, it kind of helps you figure out what are working. You don't have to run the whole script every single time. Like if you were to load a CSV file or Excel file right here, it doesn't have to do it every single time. Like you'll put it in one cell, like, hey, read this data, and it's gonna stay in that variable. Versus if you were to do in Visual Studio Code, it just they'll have to do it every single time. And it could be time consuming if you have a lot of code. So this one, it kind of one thing at a time, and it's great for that. So strings. So we're gonna talk about a little bit about the different data types that Python has, and a lot of these translate to other programming languages. So if you programmed with anything else before, you've probably heard about strings, booleans, lists, various things like integers. So those are the data types. Some programming languages are very strict about that. You have to tell it what data type you want your variable to be. For example, in Java, you say like, hey, variable 1 is an integer, variable 2 is string. Python, it's not as strict. You can just say like, hey, so here we can see like our word variable is this, and then you can override it with different things, but you can also override it with just an integer. So versus in Java, it would yell like, hey, this is incorrect data type. we cannot do this. So Python is really, it can cause issues, but for the most part, I think it's helpful to be that way. So yeah, we'll start with the strings. So string is just text, a blob of text, a paragraph, anything. In Python, a string can be either with the double quote marks or then a single quote marks. It'll accept either one. Unless you're doing, there's some string formatting that you can do, and it might be a little picky about which one you're using. Some formatting ones only let you use double quotes, some only let you use single quotes. But when you're just putting a string, a text blob, it doesn't matter which one you're using. It doesn't even matter if you're using them like different things throughout your code. I'm kind of guilty of that. Like sometimes I use the double quotes and sometimes I use the single quotes, but it doesn't matter. It's gonna work regardless. Another thing with Jupyter Notebooks, the way you run the cell, so when you want to run your code, you can do is you do Shift and Enter, and now it ran this cell. So that's like the easiest way to run things. But you can also click to run it here, but I think this is going to run every single cell. So when you want to just run one single cell, you'll do Shift and Enter. So here we can see these are the outputs of when you put a string in here. This is what it is, and all of these are strings. And here's a multi-line string, and we can see the new line in the output here. And then Jupyter Notebooks, it's so the printing here, so you can see like all of these got outputted here, but when we have multiple, it's only going to do the last one. And same thing, like if you want to display a variable, like you want to output multiple of them, you want to use the print statement, and that way it will do all of them. So, but you won't get that in like a regular Python program. So if you just have a Python program in Visual Studio and you just put this somewhere, it's not, I don't think it's gonna output it. I don't think I've ever tested that, but I think nothing happens in that case, unless you put print or log or whatever different ways. But print, and it's going to output it. And then talked a little about our variables. So this is how you assign a variable. So our variable is word, and we want its value to be microphone. And then when we're assigning things and you run the cell, see how nothing happens, because we didn't tell Jupyter Notebooks to like, hey, I want to see this variable. Versus here, it was like, I want to see this one, or I want to see these ones over here. This one, we're just doing an assignment for the variable, so nothing happens. So here, we're assigning word microphone to word. Then we decide we want it to be camera. And then now when we want to see what the value of word is, see how it's camera and not microphone. And same way, we could have, if we do, I think this one, this is a new cell here. Like I said, I haven't used this online version. I've used it locally, and I'll show you that later on as well. So we do word right here. Another thing also, this is going to work in the order that you run the cells. So see how this one, we're assigning microphone to word, but when we're outputting word, it's still camera, because this one got run after this one. But now if we do word equals microphone, this microphone, camera, and this camera. And this one also, like I was talking about data types previously, we can assign this to be an integer. So this is no longer a string, and now it's just one. So Python won't yell at you when you override with different data types, which can be problematic if, like, let's just say you're dealing with a data, like a form, and you're taking, you want to make sure that your data types are correct. And if you're not doing your proper validation yourself, you might accidentally overwrite a data type that you were not looking to. So we'll talk about that later, but yeah. So it can be problematic, but most of the time it's just kind of nice that it doesn't yell at you about things. And then, oops. Here's different, yeah. So in different ways to name variables, I think it depends kind of like what language you're dealing with, but camel case, you see camel case a lot in Java. So what that means is that every time, always the first letter is going to be lowercase. That's kind of like standard across all programming languages, I'd say, that usually the first letter of the variable is going to be lowercase. Unless you're dealing with constants, then they might be like all uppercase. But camel case means like, you know, lowercase, and then the next word is going to be uppercase. And that makes it easier to read what the variable is supposed to be. This is very popular in Java. I use both of these, I think. Python kind of, I feel like people are leaning more towards the, I guess it's called snake case, where you use underscore, and that's where you don't have any upper, capital letters. So everything's just lowercase, and then you just separate the words with the lowercase letters. So those are two ways that you'll see variables being named. And whenever you're naming variables, please name it as what it does. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your peers' life easier, because you want to be able to write readable code, because you're going to forget. Like, you're going to write this code, and then a month later, you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, I have no idea what's going on here. So do yourself a favor, do other people a favor, and make sure that you're using proper variable names, because a lot of times you'll just see like var1, var2, or button1, button2. And yeah, it's going to take so much more time to figure out what the code is doing when you're not using proper variable names. So good variable names. It's going to make you a better engineer, better programmer, better data scientist. Just do it. Do it. So here is what I was talking about, kind of like the string formatting. So again, we have our variable word, and then this is how you can put it inside a string. So my word is microphone. So this is how you embed variables in strings. You want to have the F in the front, and then you do the curly brackets, and then you put the variable in there. And I think this one, it needs to be double quotes. No, it works for both. I think it used to be that you can only use double quotes, but I think they've changed that. So yeah, you can use either one, but that's how you can embed them. There's other ways. I think this is the most clear one, but you can also do it in a way that you do like a string. I think it's something like this. I think you need to do a string format. And this might be from Java, actually. I don't remember, because I always use this one. But yeah, there's a couple of ways to do it, but I think this is the cleanest way to do it, and I definitely personally prefer it. And same here, we can use the snake case, and you can do it with multiple. It doesn't always need to be at the end, so wherever you can put them, and we'll see. Yeah. So here's a little challenge, very similar to what was happening here. So you want to make a little story, and then it will print everything here. And here you can see, if you want to use quotations or single quotes, you'll want to use the backspace or what is it called? Backslash before the quotation mark in order to print it out here. or you can, I think because this one's like, if you're using double quotes on the outside and you want to use double quotes on the inside, but if we were to do single quotes like this, then we wouldn't need this. Oh, yeah. See, here's another single quote. So it's mad about that one. But I think if we do this, does it? I don't know if it's gonna, yeah, there we go. So that's how you kind of tell it like, hey, ignore this when it comes to the like running the program. Like this is a string, like just ignore it. But that's how you can use it differently. And this is a big thing that you see a lot in when it comes to data cleanup and data manipulation is single quotes, double quotes. They cause a lot of problems. So knowing how to properly handle them is very important, because if they're not properly, like how they're properly output in the database, pulled out from the database, is, yeah, a lot of problems. So something to be very mindful of is dealing with these. And then, so methods, functions are things that you do, like, how do I even explain this? Methods, like, able to be use some variables, well, so data types. So strings have methods that you can do with them. So we're looking at, so type, we put our string, so name is a string, and then we want to find out what type is this variable. So we'll put it inside this method type. And these are like, they're built-in functions that do things, you know? I don't know. A lot of, so Python has libraries, and instead of you having to write a function or like code to accomplish something, you use the built-in functions. And yeah, this is an example, one of them, or then is another one is there. And this one is going to show you everything that you can do, all the methods that you have string has in Python. So for example, you can strip spaces from the ends, or put it all lowercase, put it all uppercase, check if it's all uppercase, joining strings, replacing, similar to when you do find and replace in Google Docs, Excel. But yeah, this is how you can find what are all the possible things that you can do to that variable. But yeah, you'll probably never use all of these. A lot of times, yeah, we have format, ends with, can be kind of, is decimal, is digit. These are kind of like, so if we have a number that's actually a string, so it's not an integer, so it is in the double quotes or single quotes, we can check if it can be converted into an integer or decimal or float by these functions. Basically what it does, it's like, it attempts to parse it, and if it can't parse it, then it's going to say true. And if it can't, it's not going to let you do that. So yeah, there's some popular ones, dot upper, dot lower, strip. So here we have our variable full name, and then it's going to, so title, it puts it into a title, it capitalizes title capitalization. So you can see like this one's all lowercase, and then it's going to put capitalize each word. Here we have all uppercase. We want it to be all lowercase. Here we have a bunch of extra spaces, and we can strip them out of there. But this one only does it from the sides. See how it didn't get rid of these spaces here, because we obviously don't want that. So these are just some ways to manipulate the data. I think strip is very important when it comes to like for dealing with forms, like data forms. So like somebody's signing up for an account or they're filling out something and they accidentally put like a space at the end of an email field. You don't want that because it might get confused. So like stripping out the extra spaces is very good. And a lot of programs, they don't realize to do that, and they'll like yell at you like, oh, it's not a correct, like it's not in a correct format for the email, when they could just parse it themselves. Like I think it's silly when they make users do that. Did someone have a question?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I want to a little bit up like that.
Say that one more time. You're breaking off a little bit.
I wanted to know how you got the list where you get the strip and ends with and all that. How did
Yes.
you get that list?
So here we do dir, and then we input the variable in there. So that's like the method. You're putting it inside the method. You're feeding as an argument in here, and this is going to give you all the possible methods that strings have in Python. So type tells you what type of variable it is, and then dir will give you all possible methods that you can do with it. And then sometimes, like, let's just say I thought name was a string, but it was actually an integer, and then I tried to do like name dot lower. It's gonna say like, hey, like there's no such method as dot lower for integers.
So when I put that dir, if I write it just like that, I'm supposed to get this list underneath it.
Did you run this? So you need to run, so the name was defined here. So you need to make sure that you're running this cell, and then this cell, and then this cell.
Okay.
So you come here and then you do shift enter.
Yeah.
And then shift enter here, and it should output this. Is that working? Yeah, that's another thing when dealing with Jupyter notebooks. You might forget that you haven't run a cell that was earlier because you just think it's earlier in the code, but it's not. You have to run each individual cell, or then you can run all of them at once. But that's a little gimmick with Jupyter notebooks.
Okay, I got it. Yep.
Nice. Anybody else have any questions? And then this is the end switch. When dealing with like files, whenever I like automate and do different scripts, end switch, it's basically checking like, oh, does this string end with dot flag? And this one is going to say false. So for example, if I'm going through all the files in my folder and I only want to look at .mp3 files, this is something that I would use. I would do the loop, and then I would say like, oh, if whatever, this variable file name ends with .mp3, then continue on with the code. So that was a very useful method when dealing with different files, if you're trying to move them, rename them, or whatever. And then this is how you check in, and this is another thing, like why Python is like so simple, the syntax, and it's so like straightforward. So this one, we're checking if there's good in goodbye, and this is gonna say true. So yes, we have good in goodbye, and it's just this one word. And this is the same way we'll learn about collections, so lists and arrays and stuff later on. This is the same way you're going to check whether or not a variable is in an array or in a list, just with in. And here we're doing both. So we're gonna do, first we're gonna lowercase, completely put all lowercase this, and then check if it isn't goodbye. And then it says yes. I think this one's case sensitive. So if we didn't do this, it would say false, versus like good is there, but it's not good in the proper format. So that's something to be also mindful of, is case sensitivity when it comes to methods and syntax in Python. It is case sensitive. So yeah, here we can see a little bit with data cleaning, manipulation, what we can do. So we have our string like, oh, I gotta get on that internet, comma, I'm late on everything. So we want to replace all the punctuation. So from quote 1, first of all, we're gonna put it all to lowercase, which is, I don't think that's really necessary in this case. But a lot of times when you're doing comparisons or replacing things, it's just a good way to make sure that you'll account for case insensitivity or case sensitivity. So here we'll first replace the comma with nothing. So this is an empty string. We have 2 quotes, and this could also be single quotes. And then we're gonna replace the explanation with nothing, and then replace single quote with nothing. And then, oh, oops, see, I didn't run this first. And then if we wanted to output this, we can do this. So now there's nothing there anymore. And we can see here. So here we got our punctuation, and then we don't have it anymore. And there's better ways to do this. Instead of replacing every single one of them, there's something called regex. I think sometimes I say that a little funny, but basically regular expression, it lets you kind of look for things, look for patterns. So you could use it to find all the punctuation and replace all the punctuation at once, versus replacing every single one of these at once. But I think we'll get into that later. If not, I'll make sure to include that, because it's also very widely used and very helpful. It could be a little much, because like I think it's a lot of memorization how to do the patterns. I usually just have to look it up, and that's completely fine. Google is free. And here's, we'll do quote 2, and then quote 2. So what is happening here? Okay, so this one, it didn't replace this one. And it didn't, wait. Oh, yes, I think we do need to do the lower here first. Dot lower. So the order of things matters. This is not working. This one I actually don't know. What is happening here? It should be doing the same thing as before. Oh, I know. Does anybody have an idea what's happening here? We're doing the same thing as we were doing before, but what is missing is the assignment here. So when it comes to replacing things, basically, it's not going to do it to the original variable. There are some functions that will do it. Like I think sorting, a lot of times you don't need to assign it. But here we have to reassign quote 2 to quote 2 with the replace. And then that's when it's going to get rid of the punctuation here. So This is very important when you're doing different things. And then same thing, if we were to just do, I think if we were doing the quote 2 dot lower, and then we did quote 2. So see, same thing here. So this one technically, if we didn't have this here, we would see it outputting it that way because we're wanting to output this as lower. But if we have anything afterwards, Jupyter is thinks that you don't care about the first one, so it's not doing it. You would have to assign it. And then that's when it will do it. Anybody have any questions? All right. And this is a lot of things that like you probably recognize that you've done in like Excel, that like you're finding and replacing things, or you're changing the capitalization or whatnot. So this is how you would do it in Python instead of using Excel for it. But again, like I said earlier, if you're not dealing with the huge amount of data, it might be just easier to pop it in Excel. Unless you become a super Python wizard and you're just more comfortable with this, then you should use Python. All right, so going to numbers. So I mentioned like integers before, so ints. So everybody know what an integer is, a whole number, no decimals, no fractions, none of that. And that's a thing that you'll see for example, and we'll see with the operators, I think, that if you're handling integers, so you're only dealing with whole numbers and you're trying to divide them and you're expecting a decimal, you're not getting a decimal if it's not properly done. And that's another thing with like, well, especially in Java, because you're telling it to be certain type. So you want it to be an integer. In order to do proper like fractions or like dividing integers that are not going to be whole numbers, you need to make sure that they're like decimal to begin with, or at least one of them is a decimal to begin with. Python, I think it's a little more flexible with that. So we'll see that here in a minute. So here's floats. And again, it's going to say float. Quite frankly, like floats and decimals, I think that's what it is. Yeah, float is a decimal. I think there's some like, trying to remember if there is like a big difference to them. But yeah, basically decimal numbers, floats in Python. Operators. So again, like talking about simplicity of Python, this is how you can do math in Python. Like you just simply put it with the operators and it'll do it. So here we can see that this one got converted into a decimal, versus if we were to do this in like Java, it would spit out. So if this is a 2 in Java, this would spit out a 4, since we only have two integers here. So Python is a little bit smarter and it knows how to convert the data types. Yeah, here. And same thing here. We're doing the string formatting. See how this one is just embedded in there and it's treating it as a variable instead of a string. So it's doing the calculation inside there when you're printing it out. This is how you do exponents with the 2 stars. Instead of, we see often in math, we see using the hat symbol, but this is how you do it in Python.
Back on the when you do the print, what does the F stand for?
So F is just a string formatting thing. So if I were to do it without the F, it's just going to treat this as a string.
Okay.
But once you're putting the F in front of there, see how the colors change. So now it's treating this as a variable.
Okay.
So that's yeah, very important to remember when you want to embed variables into strings. You need that f, and that's the easiest way, in my opinion, to do it. That's usually what I use. There's a couple other ways to embed variables into strings, but this was the easiest to remember, in my opinion. So, but yeah, you need the f in front of there. Anybody have any other questions? And then here we'll see a little bit, what is it, PEMDAS? PEDMAS, they teach in high school. I did do high school in the US, think learned that, but I don't think I remember that abbreviation. But yeah, so they make a difference here as well, using the same logic as a calculator would. So what do we want to hear? I think this one does it in, let's see, what would this be if we went from left to right? The 4, 2 divided by 2, 1 times 2, yeah. Versus if we do 2, 4, and then yeah. So this one, I think it just goes from left to right. So you'll want to use the brackets when you're dealing with formulas. There. Oh gosh, have you guys seen these on online where people are like hardcore over, and there's like mathematicians trying to figure out like what's the correct way to solve this, because different calculators give different things, and then you're trying to figure out what the correct order is, whether or not you should multiply these over here first, or you should do this addition first. But apparently, yeah, what do we get here? It's, some people say it's 120, and math PhD says it's 5. I'm not a mathematician, so I'm not gonna get into that. Then here more, and then we have floor division, and this is basically, it just like rounds it down to the nearest whole number. So you can take the floor or the ceiling. There's also functions for that in Python. So I think you would do like .ceil or .floor to do it with different functions. But yeah, you can do a lot of math stuff, a lot of stat stuff with Python. And here's rounding. So these are just, I think it rounds it to the nearest whole number. And then see how here, so talking about functions. So this is a function, and what you're putting in here is an argument. And you can have the same function named exactly the same that does something else, depending on like the number of variables that there are. So here we only have arguments, how many arguments that there are. So here we're using round with just one argument, and it's rounding it to the nearest whole number. But here we're putting a second argument in here. So this one's basically telling this function that, hey, round this to 2 decimal points. So 2 means that's like like how many decimal points you wanted after it. But these are named exactly the same, but the function changes depending on how many arguments you give it to. And that's you'll see that if you're programming in Visual Studio or IDE and you're naming functions the same. I think Python actually will just override it, versus Java is going to scream that you have 2 functions that are exactly the same. So like you need to get rid of one of them. And that's, and like with Jupyter notebooks, it doesn't recognize what's going on around it, so it wouldn't do that. And then this one is rounding it the other direction. So adding 2 zeros over here when you use the negative value here. The modulo, so remainder. I took a what was it? Algorithms class this past semesters, and we dealt a lot with the reminder thing. A lot of different algorithms. Like to play with that. So this is the percent sign that's going to give you the reminder. So what that means, if you're not familiar, so when we divide 8 by 2, what is left? Like, what's the reminder? Like, if you were to do long division, what's the remainder? So if we were to change this to 9, you're going to get 1, because 2, so 9 divided by 2 is going to give you 4.5. So you get 4 as the whole number, and then you have 1 left over that cannot be divided anymore. So, and there's like, yeah, ways to calculate this. It's, yeah. So yeah, let me keep this as the same. 8 and then 4. Yeah, here's the 9. Yeah. So reminder, and then this is the actual what it's divided to. Big numbers. I don't think there's anything really special with this one. You can just, you know, you can write the big numbers similar. You can write it in a calculator. It's going to give you the doing E and 3, and that's how many zeros you want there. And it's still an integer. And then, so here's dealing with variables. You'll see these two. So we have profit of 100, and then we want to add 10 to profit. So let me show here again, profit. So, oops. So 100. So adding 10 to 100, we get 120, sorry, 110. And then we come here, we added another 10 here. So this doing plus equals, you're basically doing the addition and the assigning at the same time. So this is exactly the same as this. It's just simplified version of it. And you'll see this a lot. You can also do it with subtraction, with products and division. So it's the exact same thing. You can totally write it like this. This is just going to be a simplified version of it. It's just going to make it a little bit cleaner. But yeah, exactly the same. Doesn't matter which way you use. Just something you can do. Then casting is when we want to, so like I was talking about earlier, when we have a string and like we want to check whether it's an integer or decimal. So if we want to cast a string of 120 into an integer, we would tell it to like, hey, like right here, we're gonna turn it into an integer. And this one, so this one says raise no error, so it's not gonna give you the error. But I think we comment this out. It's gonna say like invalid literal for int with base 10. So value error. And this is how you do comments, by the way. You use the hashtag pound, and that's how you can keep whatever code you have there and just ignore it. In Python, it's the pound hashtag symbol, and then Java uses 2 slashes. Then like I think in HTML, it's like exclamation and then like hyphens or something like that. So, but this is, and I think you can actually use, can you use this one? No, you can't. Yeah, so hashtag. And that's another thing with Python, it doesn't have multi-line comments, so you can't, so in Java, you could do this, and whatever you put in between here, it's gonna be a comment, but with Python, you can't do that. You have to do each individually. However, you can do Oops. Actually, I think you have to do it in, yeah. In Visual Studio Code, there's like a shortcut that you can comment things out. So you can select multiple lines and then you can comment all of them out. But yeah, so here, this doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because we have the $sign in here. So it cannot cast that into an integer. It doesn't know what to do with that. But if we were to take it out of here, then it would work. Let's see. Let me just do this. So here, so it was a string first, and then we turn it into an integer. So now you could basically use this for calculations and whatnot. And this one, I think, let's see, I don't know why they do this. You kind of want to know when you're getting errors, in my opinion. So here, could not convert it because we have multiple zeros there, versus if we just have one, then they'll be happy with that. So yeah, that's how you cast strings. And same thing, I think you can do, well, we'll get to Booleans in the next section. So we'll get there, yeah. Let's see, what do we have here? So calculations to do. So pair of shoes, 3 divided by 3, 30 divided by 3. And then pair of shoes. So this is how pair of shoes, we're assigning value of 10. And then we can add all of them together, and then we'll get 30. And this is all done, again, with the string formatting, which we could do like, we could just assign this to like total first. Do here. And sometimes there's a fine line between making it more readable and making it more efficient and cleaner. Because if something, if you use one of these like so-called shortcuts or whatever, because you want to be cool, but it's going to make your code less readable, you gotta know, like, you gotta choose which one's going to make more sense to you or which one's going to make more sense to other people, because it's not always obvious. So here, yeah, so total equals, here we go, yeah. I think this is what you, like, if you were to read this code, doing this variable here first, in my opinion, makes more sense. It's like more readable. Like someone who's never used Python, it's gonna be more clear to you what you're doing versus using it what they had here originally and the formulas inside the string formatting. So that's kind of like where, yes, you're using another variable, you're using more space, but it's gonna make your code readable. So you kind of want to weigh your options there. There's more. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? Everybody's masters. Oh, I think we'll want to do, yeah, let's take another, we'll do a 5-minute break. And if we don't get through all of these today, we'll pick them up on the next class. So not to worry. But yeah, we'll do a 7-minute break. So we'll be back by 8:15 Central. Okay. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. See, the funny thing, I really like these headphones. They're the Sony WHX something, whatever. But whenever you take them off, it like turns them off. And yeah, it's a problem in meetings whenever I take a break and then it just stops working. But it doesn't turn them off. They're still on and they're still connected, but nothing's playing. So yeah, somebody tell Sony they need to work on that. Okay, everybody here, everybody ready? Okay, bools. So booleans. This is true or false. So 0, 1. That is the only two possible values for booleans, at least in Python. I don't know if anyone has come up with something fancier, but yeah, true or false. So basically, we can compare things, we can check things. Earlier you saw we checked whether or not a string was a decimal, and it said true or it said false, and that's what a Boolean is. So here we have result, and then we can check whether or not result equals to 16. So result is 16, and then we're going to check this variable and check if it's equals to 16. And this is how you do equal checks. You do 2 equal signs. So that's another thing to be very mindful of. So when you're assigning variables, you only use 1. But when you want to compare 2 things, you're going to use 2 equal signs. And it's going to give you a Boolean as a result. So here also we can do 3 times 3. Does that equal to 9? Yes, that is true. And if we were to write here 8, it will be false. And then this is how you check is not equal to. We're going to do exclamation point and equal sign. So 2 plus 2 is not equal to 4. And this is false because 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Then my name, we're assigning that variable to max, checking if my name does not equal max, it's going to give us false. So double equals, checking if it does, explanation, and equal, it does not. So that's a lot. You'll see that used in like if statements, like, oh, if this variable equals this or does not equal this, do X, Y, Z based on that. So you'll use that a lot. Then floating point errors. We're getting here whether or not these equal to. I don't know why that is. I honestly like dealt with like numbers in Python in so long, but I'll look into this, why this is. But apparently you can't do this in Python. For rounding, I think let's see, what does this give us? Ah, okay, this is why. We're getting, it's not good, it doesn't equal to this. So we have to round it to 1 decimal point in order to be equal to this. Why this is, I don't know. Python has something going on in there. But something to be mindful of. If you can't figure out why your code is not working properly, read up on it. You'll probably find documentation on that. And sometimes there's funky little things like that. Then we can obviously check greater than equal, not equal. So number A, number B is basically checking if number B is less than number A. It is true. Same thing here. Whether or not, and here's greater than or equal, less than or equal. Most of y'all have probably seen this in math, you know. So not far from that. And this, again, this is where it tells you like how simple Python syntax is. You can just do equations like that. Hot tub, high-low. We can also use two of them to check whether things are in between. So have a longer equation. True is true, false is false, result is true, and then we check true, it's bool. And we could do same thing with result. Oh, that's what it's doing in the next line. Yeah, that's a Boolean. All right. Then another thing that Python has that's like straight English is you can actually use not. So here we say not 4 plus 4 is not equal to 8, which that's like a double negative here. But another thing you can do, for example, if statement, we would do like, oh, if result is not none. So this is completely acceptable Python syntax. And as we see, it's English. And that's why Python is great. Not true. And it just flips it. So gets you the opposite of it. Autocasting is 1 equal to false. And this is a little confusing because clearly 1 is not equal to false, but the result is false. So that might be a little confusing, but yeah. And then again, is 0 equal to true? It's not, that's false. Is empty list or array equal to false? It is not, but it is. And then another thing with Python, we use and. I think in Java, we do these two things. This is or, which you can use in Python as well. I think you see less of them. I think a lot of people have just accepted to use English, so and or. So this is or, and then in Python this is and, but in Java, and then but you can just do and. And that's another thing. When we're looking at, there's like XOR and then and. So when we're looking at something, if we have one thing that's true and then another thing that's false, we want both of these to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. So if any one of them is false and we're only using ands, the whole thing is going to be false. Versus we'll get into the or in a second, where, you know, if you have one thing that's true, then everything is true. But the only time two things are true when using and is if both of them are true. Other times, if you have false in there, it's going to be false. And if you have both false, it's false. And you see that a lot in programming, used all over programming and maths and stuff. So here, black is true, Indian food is true. Black and Indian food is true. Sushi, false. Black and false. Since black is true, but we have a false, it's false. True and true and true and false. It's still false because we have false in there. Black and false. And here we can use this one as well. But like I said, a lot of people just use and or then use or. So again, we can do snowboarding or skiing. So skiing is false, snowboarding is false. Either one of them is false. We're gonna, well, if one of them is true, that means the whole overall is gonna be true, but both of them are false. And then here, snowboarding or skiing, false. So let's change this to volleyball. Volleyball. So now we get true because volleyball is true. So we're looking at if either one of these is true, output true. So volleyball is true, skiing is false. We get true. False or false is false. True or true is true. false or false or false or true is going to be true because at least one of those is true. And you can also combine them. So we're going to do volleyball and sushi or Indian food. So either one of these. So what do we have? We had sushi is false. Indian food is true. So one of these was true. And then volleyball is true. So we get true in here and then true in here. Both are true. Any questions? Booleans are probably like one of the easiest ones too. Like it's, you know, a little unfamiliar, I think, but there's not much to them. Like that's just what it is. So easy to understand. Okay, collections. This is where fun stuff. Okay. So we have some built-in data types. So we have lists in. So these are like collections is the overall like data type, and then we have different types of collections. So list is a different type of collection, and then arrays is a different type of collection. Dictionaries is a different type of collection. Sets. So these are just different ways to store variables. So we have here so snake 1, snake 2, snake 3, and then you can. This is what you can do with it. So you can just combine strings with addition. So with plus sign, you can just put all of them together. So anaconda, cobra, mamba. Then this is how you would put them into a list. So with the brackets, so snakes equals snake 1, snake 2, snake 3, and then here we get our list of snakes. Same thing, we can do it with numbers, and then numbers, it's a list. So, and it's a list of integers, but Python doesn't care about the inside of it. And you can also do, I think it goes on, it doesn't all have to be the same. You can also have strings in here. And it's still a list. So Java is less flexible about that. You will have to declare what kind of list it needs to be. So you would say or an array, a string array, integer array, and it will only allow that one data type in there. Versus Python, you can just kind of freestyle it. Indexing. This is how you access the variables in the list. So, and this is one thing that you'll have to wrap your head around. Numbers no longer start from 1, they start from 0. And that's a big like computer thing. So here we have 1, 2, and 3, but we're looking at snake 2, but we actually get snake 3. And that's because we have index 0, index 1, and index 2. And that's a thing that I think a lot of people struggle with when we're dealing with looping through like the length of a string, or you're looping through this list, and you have to remember that you can't go to the number of the items. So like if I were to make a loop right now, looping through the snakes, it wouldn't go up to 3. It would only go up to 2 because that's the last index that we have in an array. And that one, yeah, it's going to take a little bit to get used to it. I don't know why they decided that. Probably maybe a solid reason. Probably not. Potentially. And here we go. So index 0, that's anaconda, which is our snake, snake 1. Anybody have a question about that? Everybody good? And you'll use this a lot. You can access the variables in lists. You can access like the character in a string, in a variable. So yeah. And then this is how you use when you do negative. That basically starts from the end. So we're gonna do And then to get like the last, it'll be -1. So this is -1, -2, -3. So if you don't know, like you just know something's at the end, or you just want the last item in the list, or the second to last, you're going to use the -1, -2, -3, and so on. But if you were to do -5, it's going to say list index out of range. So it won't let you get something that's not there because we don't have an index -5. The same thing if we were to do 4, we're going to get list index out of range. Same thing 3. This is where a lot of people make the mistake. You think we have 3 items, but there's no index 3. There's only 0, 1, 2. Like here. Yeah, snakes 10. There's no snakes 10. And this is how you can add things to the list. So basically what's happening here is like snakes is already a list. So this is a list. And then we just want to add, this is technically a list. It just has 1 item in it. So we want to combine those 2 lists and we can just combine them with the plus sign. So now snakes includes, well, no, this one, again, here, we didn't assign this. So we were to assign this to, so right here, it shows the next. So this still stays the same, but if we want to see snakes and then with the side window, whatever that is. But here we're assigning it, so then we'll see. Now it got added there twice because I run this twice. And that's another thing with the Jupyter Notebook. If you run things multiple times, it's going to do it multiple times. To like clear it, you just have to go from like the beginning where it's like first assigning it and then run them to not end up in this situation. Something to keep in mind about Jupyter Notebooks. Slicing. So if we want to only access things in the middle, this is how we can do it. So from index 1, so index 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, to second to last. So we only get these right here. And this first one is inclusive, and then this last one is exclusive. That one's like, I always forget which way it goes, but it's not too hard to check how it goes. But yeah, and this is, again, we can do like 2, 2, 4, and then we'll only get, so index 2, and then this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is index 4, so that's not inclusive. So we'll only get these 2. Any questions? Everybody's still awake. It's not as late as for you guys, but it is an evening class, so understandable. Yeah, so here's, let's see, list of songs. Again, here's strings, different strings in here. One-hit wonders, list of songs. We're assigning it to that. These are the same. And then this is how you can assign to a, see how here we had, so list of songs, we got Never Gonna Give You Up, Stacy's Mom. Then at index 1, we want to put Allie's mom. So we no longer have Stacy's mom, we have Allie's mom because we overrode that. So we're reassigning the variable or the value at index 1 with a new value. So now Stacy's mom's gone. But one-hit wonders, and then yeah, so because we have so one-hit wonders is equal to list of songs. So that was the same thing here. It got like replacing both of them because they equal the same thing. Does that make sense? And then we'll rewrite this again. And this is how you, like, if you want it to be its own thing, so you don't want it to be referencing the list of songs, we'll use copy. So we'll see, let's see, do one hit wonders. So now this is a copy of list of songs. If we were to do that there, so we'll see here. So one hit wonders. So we added this one in here. So we didn't have Ice Ice Baby, now we do. But the list of songs, though, this is now the original here. So they're no longer connected. They're no longer referencing each other. So that's what you have to use, the copy. That's another mistake that I've definitely personally made, and I think you see a lot of people make, is you forget that it's actually referencing things and it's not like creating a copy of it. It's not its own variable. That's something that we could get into, kind of like, this was, I think, a great thing that they teach a lot of times in Java is like the address, like the reference and the address of the variable and where it's pointing to. I'll try to find maybe a nice graphic for next class to like really understand it. All right, so methods, we can do the dir of list of songs. So list of songs is a list, and these are all the possible methods that Python has built in. So append, clear, copy, count, index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, sort. So here we'll do list of songs, we'll append. So this is the same thing as doing this. So we're appending this to it. So you can do it with this, or you can do it .append. And here you don't need the brackets. You're just appending the value, the string, instead of like combining two lists. So I think we could see here list of songs. So here, and we did this twice because I ran this twice. So it got appended there twice. Garbage, let's see, garbage. So here we added one, then we added hey. And here, this is actually a list inside the list. So if you're adding with two brackets, so we could do like, hello. And now we have a list inside of a list, which this was list to begin with. It just had one variable in it. Here's the songs, append these two. And see, this is where if you do use the brackets in here, it's gonna add it as a list. So that's something to be mindful of when you're, depending on what you're trying to do. But you'll most likely want to use this one where you don't have the brackets, because you don't want to add a list in there. You want to add a value in there, or variable. And then here, let's see, list of songs. So now it deleted the last one. So delete the last, whatever is in the last index in the list. And it got rid of this list in here. Any questions? Also, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. And extend. So this is a different way too. So you can use the brackets here, but you're just using extend. So this is basically the same thing as you're using the plus sign to add two lists together. See, more methods. And then here, how we did the dir over here, but here we're slicing it. So we only want to see from the 36th index forward. So it only show us these last ones. Then we can sort them. So we have our numbers here, building sort. If you ever become a software engineer programmer, which in data science, applying for jobs and going to coding interviews, you might also face this. They'll ask you to like write up an algorithm to do something like, oh, like find two numbers in an array that sum up to a target type of thing. And sorting is like a huge deal there, because you want to find the most efficient way to sort things and such as things. So related, unrelated, just something to keep in mind. But yeah, here we're sorting. So it's a built-in thing. You don't need to write your own algorithm to do that. We can count. So what is this? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so counting, how many 5s do we have in here? So we have 3 5s at these indexes. 0, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. Then pop. This is something that, so there's like also types of lists. So we have like queues, and then like heaps. But pop in Python works for all kinds. So basically what it does, it pops out the last element in your list. So now when we look at numbers, it's no longer there. So pop, it pops it out, it's gone. Same thing as like, you can also remove it. Like you could do like the del last index or whatnot, but pop, that's how you access it. So instead of it just like removing it, this is how you access it. So we could also like, this one could have been equal to like variable, and then we did var. So now this is equal to, and now it's equal to 5 because we popped 9 and then we popped 5. But you can basically assign it at the same thing. Last, and yeah, this is exactly what it shows. Okay, so dictionaries. So dictionaries is a type of collection where we have a key and then we have a value that's assigned to it. So key, value. So our key is ni, value is you, how, value is good, ni hao, hello. So here we're accessing it with the key. So from vocab is our variable, our dictionary, and we want to access whatever value is at this key, and then what value is at this key. So this one is getting us, oh, and this one needs to be run first. We get you good. Instead of like, it's not gonna get the key, it's gonna get the value that's assigned to it. And this is these are also called like hash maps in Java. It's a really great way, like it's a very efficient way to access data, because it's basically like time complexity of 1, like constant time. Does this make sense? Anyone have any questions? Everybody's pro. And then we access the last one. Yeah. But we cannot access something that does not exist there. So key error, not there. But we can add it there. So now we added, this is how you add it to a dictionary. So our value is Chinese language. Our key is, not gonna even attempt that because I don't speak Chinese, but now we have it in there. So that is how you append, add values, key value pairs into a dictionary. You take the variable, you take the key, and you assign it to a value. All right, methods so if you just, it prints out the whole thing, like, and we can see what do we have. Clear copy, get items, keys. So this one shows all the keys that we have in there. This one shows all the values. This one shows all the items. So this is the key value pair. Then get. So this one, it's not going to, so again, we saw earlier, like if it doesn't exist there, it's going to throw an error. But with get, it's not going to throw an error. So this will only find it, like it will only get it if it exists, but it's not going to give you an error about it. But it's the same way, like if you were to do the this way. So just a different way to get the values. And this is way, if it's not there, you can set a default value here. So like get this item from the dictionary if it exists. If it does not exist, then return not yet known. Sets. It's very similar to lists, honestly. There's just like things that you can do with sets. Like it just behaves a little bit differently, but for the most part, like they look the same. And what happens is with sets, you cannot have, it's basically like same thing as dictionary keys. You cannot have multiples. So like if we had multiple times like ice ice baby and then you turn it in a set, it will only show it there once. And then here it's we get a set of this instead of this, and then we're going to compare what's not in the first one, and Stranger Things is the only thing, or like what's not in both of them. Here's again all of these: add, clear, copy, difference, discard, intersection, subset, pop, remove. Tuples. Tuples is a list of just two things. Honestly, like don't use tuples a lot, but yeah. And this is how you can assign these all. So color, our variable color, it's a tuple. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, tuple can be more than that. Yeah. So basically, it's a list of these three things, and then we can assign red, green, and blue to this color, and it's a list of three. So when we print out blue, it actually got assigned to 20 here. That's another way you can like assign variables and do with them. I'll skip over this, and then we'll go over imports real quickly, and then I think we'll be out of time. Then we can save all these other things for Wednesday. Anybody have any questions? Any questions on the lists, collections? Okay. So imports, this is how you bring in other libraries, frameworks, when you want to do something that's not built into Python. You're going to have to import those libraries. So library, it'll have different methods, different ways to do things. So like we saw earlier, we can do math this way, but then there's a library called math. So when we import math, we can do math.square root of 10, and that's how you get, you don't have to do all this stuff. And like we talked about earlier, like there's just an extensive amount of libraries for Python. And this is a different way. Like if you only want to import one method or one like sub thing from a library, you can say from math. So here we did import math, but now we only want the square root. So like this is really helpful if there's like huge libraries. So for example, like you're dealing with Google API libraries, you don't want to import the whole library because it's going to take a lot of space, but you only want like something specific. You'll just import that one specific thing. So import square root, and then it's going to do this. because again, we want efficient applications or fast applications, space-friendly applications. And this is how you can rename things. You can do from math import square root as square root, and then instead of using sqrt, you could just use square root. And you see this a lot. A lot of people do import pandas as PD or import plotly as, is it plotly? PLT, things like this. And then instead of always writing pandas dot, you could just do PD dot. So you see that a lot. But I was also, like we talked about earlier, like naming variables, just be mindful of how you name them. It'll make it easier, because a lot of times your imports are all the way at the top of your code, and then when you're going through the code, and then you're gonna be like, oh, what's PD again? And like if it's not like intuitive, you're gonna have to like go look and you're confused. So be mindful of that. Documentation, we can do help. It'll tell you what this function does. So square root, it will return the square root of x. The same way, since we renamed this, you can do it on this one as well. So this is how you can get pi. So math.pi, if we were to do math.pi, there's our pi. Square root of 10. And here's what I was talking about earlier. So you can do seal. So that's like the sealing of this. The floor. Import tau. Greatest common divisor. So yeah, math is very, very commonly used. Any questions? And yeah, import time. This one comes with sleep. So what this basically does, see how we're printing 1, then we're printing 2. So sleep 1, this means that, hey, wait for 1 second before you continue the next line. So here we printed, then we waited 1 second, we printed. Versus if we didn't have these, it's just, because Python is pretty quick. So if we don't have these, it's just gonna do it super quickly. Versus we have these, and then see how it does 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's like if you have to do any waits in your code, for some reason you're waiting for something. That's how you can do it. Iterations. So here we have different lists, import iter tools, and then this one's gonna get, so it's gonna iterate through each one of these lists and then do like a product of them. So we have Indian cocktail ice cream, so it gets these ones. Then we have Indian cocktail cake, Indian cocktail popcorn, Indian wine, what is it? Indian wine cake, Indian wine popcorn. But yeah. So yeah. So iter tools, so it gets the like some product, and that's what it's called in Excel. No, is that right? Don't quote me on that. Import random. This is a fun one, like when you're doing data science things, or like you're just doing something random. So it can give you randomly generate a list, give you a random number. Sometimes you see programs that they use like a seed to generate certain values based on like you want it to be unique. So you can use random number for that. Let's see. What is this? I like that they use symbol, but it's emojis. Then collections dot counter. So from collections import counter. This one, it gets, so we have a list of items, counter basically counts each one of those and gives you how many times it appears there. So we have red there 3 times, we have blue there 2 times, and then green there 1 times. And that is a collections counter. And then again, this one is a dictionary, like we saw earlier. So red is a key, and 3 is the value. Blue is a key, 2 is the value. So when we go counter and want to get red, it's going to give us 3 because we're using the key red and then getting the value 3. We can also do most common. So the 2 most common things that appear here. So red and blue. Any questions? Oops, nope, yep. The same thing. Yeah, so some third-party libraries. I have not. Let's see, no model, rich. Let's see. This one might have to be like imported or something, or does it? Yeah. This one, we would have to, let's see. Is there a terminal somewhere here? So basically, these are like not built into Python, which means you have to install them on your laptop or your computer first. And how you would do that, I think this one doesn't have, is there a terminal? There should be a terminal. Let's see, file. But this is how you would do. So for example, the terminal we were looking at earlier. So, and this is another thing, you can actually just run Python in your terminal. So you type Python. So right now we have Python here. So we can do 3 plus 3. It's gonna give us 6. If I were to do import, so let's see, from rich import print. Do I have that locally? Import chime. Yeah, so no module named chime. So what we would do is pip, well, actually, we have to exit this one first. And then we would do pip install chime. And it's going to find this library online, and it's going to install it on my computer. So this is how you would, for example, like pandas, plotly, those are not installed on your computer. I think they're installed in the Anaconda cloud, but you would do like pip install pandas. And that's how you're going to get the library locally on your computer. And that's what you use the terminal a lot of times for. The schedule, yeah, I don't think this one's going to work. Yeah. Yeah, those need to be installed in here. But yeah, we got through these and we can pick up here on Wednesday. Anybody have any questions? Let's see. And here's another one, getting started with Anaconda. If you're not familiar with, you've never used Anaconda, Jupyter Notebooks, this one's kind of going to give you a little bit of a overview of how to create environments, install packages, launching them in IDE. So this is very helpful. I can link this to you, but I'll also make sure to get this notebook to you guys. And yeah, if you're curious and you have time, they have a lot of different things here that you can look at, Python tips. They're very good. And if you do them and you have questions, you can bring them to class and we can talk about it. Other than that, that's all we have for today. And I will see everybody on Wednesday. Last chance for any questions. You have 1 minute. Oh, no, you don't have. No, you can ask a question if you have a question.
I just want to make sure, this is Ronnie, where we get that Anaconda. I mean, it's hard for me to see the screen. I mean, I've got it blown up on a 17-inch monitor, but by the end of the day, after working at a computer all day, to follow along and see without having a magnifying glass, the way the StreamYard.
So this, are you talking about these notebooks?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't get to there initially, but it wasn't posted
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
Slack either. So
I can post everything on the Slack as well, but this one was the anaconda.cloud. So I did put that. I don't know if you can see it in the chat still, but that's how you get here. This welcome to Anaconda Cloud. You'll
yeah,
want
no,
to
I got to
Okay.
that
Okay.
spot, but it's just
Okay.
getting
So clicking notebooks here, and then you should see this should be what you see at first.
right. But like those screenshots, I mean, I cannot read on stream with this. I mean, I've got a magnifying thing to see what's
Okay.
exactly where to go. I mean, if you can,
yeah. I'll
I mean, it's
drop the
just hard to follow
instructions.
along without it's blurry. The StreamYard to me, it's
Yeah.
not very.
So do you see Anaconda Learning?
Yep.
That's in the first section. So you're going to click that. Then there's Python programming,
Uh-huh.
and then Introduction to Python Programming. So this is where the notebooks that we were. So it says
Okay.
open in new notebook. And all of these you'll have to like open individually. So you'll open it in a new notebook. And that's where it is. And make sure to hit save up here. It has like the little save button, because otherwise it's not going to save it. Like if you close it, you'll have to go find it again. But if you save it, it'll show up here on the side where your folders are, and it'll create the subfolders automatically for you. So it would be like Anaconda Learning / Python Programming, Introduction to Python Programming, and then you'll have 0-1 strings.
So and if we did this, 4 years ago, I could have the account still on there with that, or they've updated that. That's what I thought. I don't know. I know we used Anaconda. I was trying to go through my notes from the previous time. Just again, I didn't want to create a new account if I already had one, but I couldn't find my records.
Yeah. So I would assume that it keeps your notebooks in here. What I did notice is because I watched like Who Taught This Class a year ago, and there are some notebooks that they're like kind of like deprecated, so you no longer can find them, which I was trying to find them, but they're no longer there. But you can also, what you can do is you can download these locally. So you can do download here, and then that way you do have a local copy of them. So if something happens to like your cloud account, you'll have them locally.
Okay.
And I can also show with the like local Anaconda distribution, how to get like, instead of using the cloud version, you can use the application, which I personally prefer. That's what I'm used to. But I do think the way they've made the learning and the notebooks available here is very nice. But I think.
Okay. I will play around with that.
Anybody else have any questions? And I can drop a note if anybody who wasn't able to do this while we were doing it, how to navigate here, so you can look through these notebooks.
And will you put that in Slack then to get to that? That's okay.
I'll put it to Slack.
Okay. And I have a Hall of Fame induction thing on Wednesday night, so I might not be able to be live, but I'll, listen on when I can. Otherwise, I'll watch the recording because we'll be remote again, right?
Yes, I reside in Florida, so you guys will not see me in person. But I think there is an option to go in the classroom. I'll have to check with Nate with that. But
I just like how we're teaching it, and maybe I talked to Nate. I cannot read the screen; it's just too tiny. I mean, to follow along, I can't blow the screen up enough to, it's just not very functional not very good learning environment for.
We can. Does this help like at all?
Yeah, it might, and I've got it blown up on a screen, so it just like pixelizes it. But that's a little bit better, I think. I didn't want it, but
yeah,
it could just be my eyes too. But I can only magnify so much, and it's fine print.
Yeah,
when it's on stream, if it's projected on a screen. But yeah, that's better though.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, please let me know in the future if you cannot see anything, because I've definitely dealt with that myself, where because a lot of times it depends what the resolution of my computer is. Like I
Yep.
actually have 2 screens, so this one's not huge, which maybe using my laptop in the future might be easier because it's a smaller screen. But I also have like a huge, I think this is a 32-inch, and that one would probably make it very tiny.
Gotcha. Nope, I
But yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So we'll definitely let me know in the future, and we'll try to make sure that everybody can see that. Because again, like this is gonna be in YouTube, so like if you can't read it there, that's obviously a problem because then there's no
Well,
value
like I
to it.
told Nate, I'm really here to, learn and see how I can add value to the instruction that's happening, at our high school. And I've still got to interact with those teachers. And I just want to refamiliarize myself with the content, but how I can help, develop the future data
Yeah.
analytics, and get them interested in it, because typically just have the instruction that's valuable for them. They can teach themselves online half the time and stay,
Yeah.
a step ahead of the teacher who's a math teacher just trying to, learn it to get the interest. But when you've got these pathway programs, that's really where I'm going with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think most people already left. So yeah. We'll see you on Wednesday or on recording on the Slack.
Yep. Sounds good.
Have a good night.
Thanks.